Greetings. Pursuant to our bylaws, the 2020 Annual Congregational Meeting of the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor will be held next Sunday, May 31st at 11:30 a.m. For the first time in 150 years, this meeting will be held remotely using the Zoom video conferencing platform. Here with important details, live by satellite, is the technical coordinator for this meeting. Thank you. Here are a few tips to help your experience go as smoothly as possible. No special equipment is required. If all you have is a phone, a dial-in number will be provided. To experience the video, you will need the Zoom application installed on a computer or mobile device. If you have not yet upgraded to version 5 of the Zoom application, please do so prior to Sunday. Starting Sunday, all users will be forced to upgrade before using the application. In order to ensure a quorum, all users need to be checked into the room. Check-in starts at 11:15, so please connect prior to 11:30 so that we may start the meeting on time. This is our first meeting of this scope, so please be patient should any glitches arise.
I have a question. Will the congregation be voting? And if so, how?
That's a great question. We will be holding a vote on the minutes for the 2019 meeting, as well as the slate of candidates. The Zoom polling feature will be used for voting, and up to 2 members may vote on a single device. In addition, a question and answer session will be held using the chat feature. More information about the meeting and the items to be voted on can be found on our website. In these times, it's more important than ever that we stay informed about the goings-on at UUAA. All members and friends of UUAA receive a weekly e-news as well as periodic emails that keep us updated about the congregation. Our website is also a fantastic resource. Did you know that all board meeting minutes are available on the website? Simply type minutes into the search field, hit enter, and click on the first result. Thank you for your attention. Once again, please join us next Sunday at 11:15 for check-in for our congregational meeting starting at 11:30. I look forward to seeing you there.
In this time of transition and change, where the world is changing in profound ways we could have never expected, we are so fortunate to have each other. I am sitting in this circle with my humble guides, surrounded by the ones I love, protected on all sides, breathing out and breathing in, and holding all that's fine. Though the world around me shatters, I center on this time. If for just one moment we are still beneath the dark and the dreary, if we could shine a light so strong, we may not feel so weary. For just one moment we are still beneath the dark and the dreary, we could shine a light so strong, we may not feel so weary. Breathing out and breathing in holding all that's fine. Though the world around me shatters, I center on this time. For I am sitting in this circle with my humble guides, surrounded by the ones I love, protected on all sides.
Welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. We have been working to make a difference for the beauty of the earth and the freedom of her citizens since our founders organized to break the cycle of human slavery in 1865. That same drive toward justice inspires our present passion and practice. And to quote the American philosopher Oprah Winfrey, that same guts and imagination that got us to this moment, all those things are the very things that will sustain us through whatever is coming. Today, we are to honor the graduating students among us with the community's blessing. And remember again that the opportunities for learning won't stop at school's edge, even when we pretend that they do. We journey on, we bridge. And while the way between bridges surprises us sometimes with rocks where we thought there would be water, we show up to share the burden, to witness, to help, and to pray. This is what it means to be a community. To show up in the holy days which bind together life to life, spirit to spirit, age to age. And in that respect, let us offer our love and benediction to our kindred of the Muslim faith. In this holy time which sees a break from the devotional fast of Ramadan, we wish you a blessed Eid. We acknowledge and honor those whose lives have been sacrificed in the wars our nation has fought with other peoples, and we send love to the families closest to the human stories that make Memorial Day a reality. Our faith is uniquely curious. It is constantly expanding its wisdom, its work, and its welcome. But we certainly don't have all the answers. It's really okay not to have all the answers, Dr. Winfrey says. The answers will come for sure, if you can accept not knowing long enough to get still, and stay still long enough for new thoughts to take root in your more quiet, deeper, truer self. We welcome you, wherever you are in the world, whoever you are in your world. Join us for a time to give the life twist of discovery, recovery, celebration, lamentation, transformation, blessed quietness, and joyful noise a chance and room to shelter and shine. The last few months have taught us that connections to our community can defy the limits of locality and social distance. So a particular welcome to you if you're joining us for the first time, or are joining us from across the country or around the world. Dr. Winfrey's charge to the graduates of 2020. Can you use this disorder, this COVID-19, can you use it as an uninvited guest that's come to reorder our way of being? Can you show us not how to put the pieces back together again, but how to create a new and more evolved normal? A world more just, kind, beautiful, tender, luminous, creative, whole. And we wonder that too. Will you lead us? And will we have access to the trust and humility it takes to let them? The charge spoken to inspire us to life and activity. Let our time of community and its worship commence once more to cause in us a difference the world can use.
As we celebrate our graduating high school seniors this week in our annual bridging ceremony, we are both honored and grateful to share the words of one of those seniors. They wish to remain anonymous, but they were dedicated in this congregation, and they have been through every single year of our spiritual growth and development program. They wrote this piece in response to a college application essay question about the meaning of community and their place in it. It was intended to accompany our chalice lighting words, so please join me by lighting your own chalice at home or by lighting the flame in spirit. Together, let us say, we light this chalice for the light of truth.
I did not always know what this line meant. In Sunday school, I learned lessons like, each person is important, and be kind in all you do. But I was still unable to explain what a Unitarian Universalist believed. These lessons were eventually replaced with concepts like the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and I began noticing that not everyone valued these ideas. People at school would discuss the death penalty, immigration bans, and welfare cuts, and I would wonder whether my values were right and true.
We light this chalice for the warmth of love.
But I did not back down or change my beliefs due to the support of my church. It gave me a community where I was an equal, where I had a voice and influence. The youth group supported my values, and so did the adults I had grown up surrounded by. I soon found myself expressing my ideas with people at school. Sometimes they would persuade me. Sometimes I would persuade them.
We light this chalice for the energy of action.
Church has also given me the power to make a difference. In day-to-day life, I might be a middle-class consumer, but when I am at Pine Ridge Reservation building handicap ramps and gardens, I feel like a servant working toward a greater cause. When I am buying presents for kids without families, I feel like a patron and a friend.
We light this chalice for the harmony of peace.
And it all boils down to this. After this last word is spoken, echoes of happiness, empathy, courage, comfort, and compassion fill the sanctuary. Because in our community, this is what we believe in.
Each week we begin our time together not only with the chalice lighting, but also with the words of our covenant. As Unitarian Universalists, we are not bound together by one single belief, but by the promises we make to each other about how we will be together. So whether this is your first time joining us, or whether you have these words memorized, please join me in saying the words of our covenant. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other. to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
To help one another. There is an urgency to that phrase in this time of pandemic when perhaps the need to help one another has never been greater. And at the same time, it demands of us an extraordinary creativity as we try to figure out how to help one another. Oprah asks the class of 2020 to show us how to create a new and more evolved normal, a more just, kind, and beautiful world. She tells them why it is important to do this. She says, "We need you to do this because the pandemic has illuminated the vast systemic inequities that have defined life for too many for too long. For poor communities without adequate access to health care, inequality is a pre-existing condition. For immigrant communities forced to hide in the shadows, inequality is a pre-existing condition. For incarcerated people with no ability to social distance, inequality is a pre-existing condition. For every person burdened by bias and bigotry, for every Black man and woman living in their American skin, fearful to even go for a jog, inequality is a pre-existing condition." Oprah reminds the class of 2020 that they have the power to stand for, to fight for, and vote for healthier conditions that will create a healthier society, a healthier world. She reminds them that taking care of oneself is caring for the entire human family. She could have quoted the Unitarian Universalist seventh principle, that we are all a part of an interdependent web of existence. Oprah continues, "We see this so clearly with essential workers. Look who turns out to be essential. Teachers, healthcare workers, of course, the people stocking grocery shelves, the cashiers, the truck drivers, food providers, those who are caring for your grandparents, those who clean the places where we work and shop and carry out our daily lives. We are all here because they, at great and profound risk, are still providing their essential service. What will your essential service be? What really matters to you? The fact that you're alive means you've been given a reprieve to think deeply about that question. How will you use what matters in service to yourself, your community, and the world? And so I ask, extending Oprah's question to all of us, what really matters to you? This congregation is working to dismantle systemic injustices. We are working individually, collectively, in great and small ways to create a healthier society, a healthier world. If the goal of a more just, fair, loving world is at the summit of the mountain, we need to keep that mountaintop within view and know that gradually, over time and with sustained effort, we will get there. If this community and its work deeply matters to you, then I invite you to give as generously as you are able. I invite you to give to support the spiritual growth and development of our youth, who move into young adulthood and continue into adulthood as human beings with tools and values to change the world for the better. That alone is work worth supporting. Friends, the Sunday morning offering can be collected on any day, at any time, maybe Wednesday at 2:43 p.m., by going to UUAA.org/giving. If you are among those financially secure right now, consider a gift of any amount to support the work of this congregation. And if you are not, know that your presence among us is your gift. I thank you for your generosity.
We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. Heaven knows. We know we are going. Heaven knows where 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 we are going. Heaven knows.
Martha Dallas, the Director of Religious Education at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont, tells a story about the Inca people in South America, who for hundreds of years have built bridges made out of grass. In some communities in Peru, this tradition continues on even to this day. Martha Dallas writes, "They made fresh bridges once a year. On the appointed day, everyone in the village would gather to begin work. Each person had a special role to play in building the bridge. First, there were people who gathered the grass. Then other people took that grass and twisted it into long ropes. Then people took those ropes and wove them into thick braids. And those braids were twisted by other people into long cables as thick as an arm. Certain people strung the cables across the gorge and pulled them nice and tight. And finally, there were weavers who would lash the cables together in such a way as to create a footbed to walk on, and rails on each side to hold. Each person did their part as best they could, and they relied on everyone else to do their part well, because every one of them needed that bridge to carry them safely across the river. In our community, we must also create and recreate our path, drawing on ancient wisdom while we create something new. We each have to work together and do our part to create something strong enough to hold us all. Our graduating seniors have been part of the strength of this community, and so today we honor and support them as they move forward into the next chapter of their lives. We use the symbol of a bridge in our bridging ceremony to mark their movement into the wider world of young adulthood. But the bridge does not mark their movement out of our congregation. Whether they travel across the world or stay close, this will always be their congregational home, and we will always be there for them."
This is really hard. When I think of the bridge that our seniors cross over in the spring of each year, I usually imagine mossy stone structures. There can be unstable sections, parts with loose footing, but overall, the bridge was imagined as strong, sturdy, dependable. This year, my mind conjures up images of long, thin rope bridges that action heroes need to navigate just in order to survive. Challenging, unstable, treacherous. What a difference a year can make. No one has ever walked the path that these seniors have to traverse. They are joining the ranks of adults with the same view. None of us have a clear path forward. I have no solid advice that I can give to them. But here's what I do know. In this time of isolation, we are finding that community is more important than ever. However, just as the Inca people created new bridges each year, we too are called to make something new. The shapes of the community, the structures, the connections need to evolve. And I suspect that we will find the youth of our community. They will guide us and shape our communities to come. They have the experience of growing up with strong digital social connections. They have already made their mark on our community here. These seniors have volunteered their time and energy at Farmer Bill's to help bring fresh produce to families who need it. They have worked with Peace Neighborhood Center to fundraise and buy Christmas presents to families who need a bit of extra help during the holidays. Some of these seniors traveled to the Lakota Reservation of Pine Ridge, South Dakota, to serve the Native people living there. I also need to recognize our adult volunteer YRUU advisors, Laura Sparrow, Gina Boldman, and Tom Goodson. Thank you so much. They have walked with these seniors during their journey. The graduating class of 2020 is and will be something special. Don't be surprised when you recognize the face of the new community organizer on Twitter, the beautiful artist on Instagram, or the creator of a new rising web application. These are the faces that will influence our generation.
Our Ann Arbor class of 2020 graduates, my heart goes out to all of you. Someone dear to me said this week that waving is the new hugging, so I'm going to give you all a wave, which is my virtual hug to each of you. What a joyous time of celebration and accomplishment in your lives, even as we are all living in the midst of such profound transition. A time of uncertainty in which none of us are really truly sure what is emerging next or what each of you is moving into, stepping into next as your lives continue to unfold. Amidst these energies, I have heard the question. I've heard in our community folks say, you know, whatever emerges next, I hope we're able to hold on to the best of some of what we're experiencing in this time. I've heard people say, I don't want to fully go back to what previously was. And yet, we didn't arrive where we are today by accident. We heard in this service earlier the words of Oprah Winfrey in which she referred to some of our society's deepest ills, deepest struggles and unhealthiness as pre-existing conditions. What are some of those things that have gotten us this far into the set of circumstances we're in today? Pre-existing conditions such as greed, an excessive focus societally on the accumulation of wealth, the hoarding of wealth, the preservation of wealth at any and all costs. Linked to that, intrinsically, hand in hand, understandings that, well, if the point of being alive is accumulation and hoarding of wealth and the preservation of it, well, some of us are more worthy. Some of us deserve that. And those who may not have as much clearly aren't as worthy, didn't deserve the type of comfort or wealth that others might be enjoying and have access to. Some of us are more special than others. We're seeing in this time that we're living in, this in-between time, the outcomes associated with being okay with those kinds of assumptions, that kind of thinking. Those underlying societal assumptions push us towards unequal outcomes where life and death is decided along the lines of race and class in our society. This has troubled us. This has troubled many of us Unitarian Universalists over the past 2 months, as these inequities, yet again, not for the first time, but yet again, are being underscored and highlighted for us. And amidst that recognition, I have heard so many in our community say, we can't go back to what had been. We have to be able to do better. We should not lose sight of these realities, these truths, these unhealthy paradigms and assumptions that have not served us well. We don't want to go back to any of that. Side by side with the recognition of what has not served us well, what has not worked, are the amplified voices in these days that speak to healthiness. The voice which reflects very much so our Unitarian Universalist commitment to the dignity of each and every living being. The voice that says that each of us matters, each of us deserves dignity, each of us deserves a livelihood. Life and death should not be determined on the basis of identity factors. We are learning and seeing how every job in society matters. How having a cashier at the store matters. How having folks driving our public city buses matters. How our nurses and lab technicians matter. Over and over again, we're seeing how folks who quietly worked in the background, doing their life's calling, serving the rest of our nation and society and the world, are critical and essential employees, just as each and every one of us is essential. We're seeing the ways in which our planet needs spaciousness in its relationship with us human beings. We're seeing how with just a little bit of space, the ecosystem around us heals itself, moves towards renewal and balance and health, if we just create the breath of spaciousness to allow it to do that. Amplified voices in this time are showing us what the other side of transition can include. And yet the time of transition is inherently a scary time because we're not there yet. We haven't emerged yet into that new reality. We are in a time of change where the outlines of a new reality are visible. We can see what might be included in that. And yet the tug, the pull of what does not want to die is so strong. The forces around us wanting to normalize, quote unquote, to return to life as it was a couple of months ago as quickly as possible. Forget that you saw all these inequities, imbalances, unhealthy assumptions embedded in our society. Forget about it. Just go back. We'll normalize. Go back to enjoying whatever level of comfort or insecurity you previously had. What we do know is that this time of transition is not going to be shorter. We're not magically going to be able to return to life as it was unless we are choosing to put ourselves and people we care about in peril and risk their health, risk their well-being. Some in our nation are already doing that. I would say unwisely so, unthoughtfully so. This time of in-betweenness will continue. And in-betweenness is inherently uncomfortable because it's neither here nor there. We are in motion. We are in motion. Still dreaming, holding on to the outlines and possibilities that we can see. In the midst of that, my dear class of 2020 Ann Arborites and members of our congregation, and all of us, because we're all truly in the midst of transition right now, trust what you know with every fiber of your being is healthy. You know, we know what those assumptions are in our society that are unhealthy, that do not feed our best human possibilities. And when we're unsure, when we feel tempted to step into energies that might not be our best selves or our nation's best potential, slow down. The greatest wisdom in the midst of uncertainty and in the midst of change is to find stillness, to slow down enough to find the stillness that is needed, to look clearly at all that exists inside us and all that exists around us. From that place of stillness and grounding, it is always possible to see what health looks like. Trust that. Listen to that. Let that guide you, even as we in the weeks and months ahead will begin to return to the life that is guided by advertising all around us and messaging all around us, political and commercial, that will try and tell us and define for us what is healthy and what our lives should be about. We have access to wisdom ourselves, direct access to wisdom. And when we're unsure, slow down and listen. Invite the members of your community into reflection with you, for we arrive at greater wisdom together than alone. Build on the healthiness that you can see, even if it hasn't been fully scaffolded yet, fully built upon and created yet, for we are the builders of the beauty our world needs, for the healthiness we human beings and our planet and our ecosystem needs from us. It is scary to watch anything crumble to the ground as it is falling apart. And yet we also know that a time of transition, the time of building something new and different, requires allowing what has not served us well, what reflects ill health, what reflects harm. We must allow that to crumble. In fact, it has needed to crumble for decades, if not centuries. Let it. And if need be, we can also mourn it. Mourn what has been familiar. Mourn what we were accustomed to. This is a time of grief and mourning. And we may even mourn the things that have not served us well, because at least we knew what those things were, what they looked and felt like. Take heart in knowing, especially our young adults in our community, the work of building continues on through you. The values that we have shared with you, your community has shared with you, live on through you and will live on past my time on this planet. We take heart in that. That matters. And we hope and trust that we've taught you well. Remind those of us who are older than you, of what these deeper values of inclusion, of integrity, authenticity, of equality and dignity, remind us of what those mean. And that those are not adjectives and catchphrases, intellectual ideas that we take take delight in, but rather values that must be created and embodied in our human living. May we find our way to that through the stillness of being that embodies our deepest wisdom.
The way we label transitions makes it seem like they are discrete points in time. Child, adult, healthy, sick, married, divorced. But life is a process, constantly in motion. Transitions happen within that context. Graduates, you have been learning all your life, even before you went to school. And then, more formally, for years in school. Then there's the moment a transition point is recognized. Graduation day, or today's bridging ceremony, where we mark the moment you officially change status within the congregation from a YRUU youth to a young adult. The beautiful thing is that you don't make these transitions alone, in isolation. You have chosen to be part of this community, and we have all chosen to support you, to be the bridge that brings some stability, that helps connect points, making a smoother path from one place to another. And how extremely important it is in this moment in time that we are present for each other in this way. Now, as we hold some time without speaking, settle into a comfortable position, whatever that is for you. Find a stillness within, whatever amount of stillness that might be. Take a few slow breaths. As this rope moves through my hands, supported by my hands, reflect on the transitions you are experiencing right now. Birth, adoption, death, illness and recovery, being partnered and unpartnered, marriage and divorce, a new job, no job, relocating, retirement, graduation. If you are comfortable sharing with the wider community any transition you are experiencing, I invite you to type that into the chat box during this ritual. Or you might choose to speak your transitions out loud as you watch the knots pass by, or hold the transition silently in your heart. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, thank you for this community, this collection of hands and arms and bodies who freely choose to form bridges, who bear witness to and support each transition, each milestone, no matter how big or small, simple or complicated, painful or joyful. Bless those among us who are marking transitions, particularly the young adults. Remind them that as they go into an uncertain future, they are well equipped to make a difference. Remind them they will always be held in the love of this community. May we each learn to recognize the deep well of creative potential we have within us to build bridges of support and love for each other. Amen.
To save you the trouble of finding your nearest tape measure, and to reassure you so that you might sing robustly, let me say, this next hymn was recorded several months ago in our first online service during this time.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Sisters, we can make such sweet harmony.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. 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 Sisters, we can make such sweet harmony.
Hey.
Woo! Air 5.
Lay it out.
We hope you'll join us after the service for a social hour. You can find the credentials, the address at uuaa.org/social hour. There you'll get all the directions you need. And if you're new to us, or Unitarian Universalism is new to you, if you're wondering if this is a community or a place you might call your spiritual home. We've reserved a room just for you. A representative of the congregation is there and available to talk with you about who we are, what we're striving to become, and how we work for love and justice in the world. Just visit that same address, uuaa.org/social hour. And when you get to a room, tell the host that you're looking for the newcomer room. They'll know what you're talking about. Until then, may the flame we have kindled, may its light and may its fire burn as warmth, memory, strength, navigation. May they be a lighthouse to your next days and a memory of our time together. Until we meet again, peace. Amen.